She is not. Our borders are open. We have human trafficking, gun running, drug running, all across an open border from California all the way to Arizona and Texas.
We don't have a future with open borders and all of the other problems this country has. The choice is simple. Kamala's mass amnesty of criminals or President Trump's mass deportation.
Harris and Trump have offered starkly different views of how immigration in the United States should be handled. Here is where the two candidates stand on the immigration debate. Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in to day 28 of Founders Month. On today's news flash, we'll be discussing a decision guide on immigration under Trump versus Harris. When President Joe Biden stepped out of the presidential race in July, some hoped the broadsides against the Democratic ticket on immigration might fade into the background. No such luck. Republicans led by their nominee, former President Donald Trump, have quickly pivoted to criticizing Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her a failed border czar and an advertising blitz targeting swing states. For her part, Harris turned the tables on GOP's standard bearer at an August rally in the border state of Arizona, where she said the former president does not want to fix the border security problem and only talks a big game about it. So even with the new name at the top of the Democratic ticket, immigration will remain as one of the most charged issues for the 2024 presidential election. And while Trump and even some media outlets have mischaracterized Harris' immigration role as vice president and label her with the title she has never received, the attacks from the GOP nominee and his allies are unlikely to stop. It's exactly the same playbook that Trump and Republicans have been using from the start, which is to try to accuse basically Biden and now Harris of being responsible for open borders when the reality is anything but that. Harris and Trump have offered starkly different views of how immigration in the United States should be handled. Even as Biden has enacted some policies that advocates argue are similarly restrictive to those of the former president, here is where the two candidates stand on the immigration debate. The number of migrants stopped by Border Patrol agents while attempting to cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally has surged under the Biden-Harris administration. Stops doubled year over year in fiscal 2019 under Trump. But the broader numbers have been comparatively higher over the last 3.5 years amid a global migration crisis. Trump is nonetheless still trying to pin the border situation on the vice president. In an effort to defend their criticism of Harris' immigration record, Republicans have said that she was known colloquially as the administration's border czar, and that Democrats' recent attempts at clarifying her role and responsibilities are contradictory. In reality, Biden himself said in March 2021 that he had asked Harris to lead the nation's diplomatic effort to work with Mexico and the three countries in Central America's Northern Triangle region to stem migration to the southern border. Harris wrote in a later report that she also was tasked with addressing root causes of that migration. The Trump administration repeatedly decreased the number of refugees allowed in the U.S., pushing the limit to a record low of 15,000 in 2021. After revisiting the cap to 62,500 for his first fiscal year in office, Biden set it at 125,500 each year after that. The number of refugees actually admitted also has risen. The U.S. has welcomed more than 68,000 refugees so far in fiscal 2024, according to Migration Policy Institute, and appears to be on track to receive the largest number of refugees since at least the Obama administration. Harris has not revealed much about her plans for refugee admissions if she succeeds Biden in the White House. but it's unlikely that she revert to Trump's policies. Harris, meanwhile, supported the bipartisan legislation at the time and noted Trump's efforts to kill it in her remarks at the August rally in Arizona. The vice president added that if she wins the election, she would sign the immigration reform bill. With Harris still somewhat new to leading the Democratic ticket, the substance of how she will otherwise combat Trump on immigration is still taking shape. A university professor worries that the vice president is going to let the Republicans decide what the narrative is and accept the premise that immigration is in crisis, that the country is being invaded, and that they're going to respond to that false narrative. I think it's a wait and see, she says. I think that what a Harris-Walz administration would do would be put their finger to the wind to see what is politically beneficial for them. And to me, that's sort of the opposite how leadership should function.
Well, by showcasing Kamala Harris standing side by side there with law enforcement, see them all there? The implication is that they support her efforts, her get tough efforts. Tulare County, California Sheriff Mike Boudreaux is one of the men in that video, and he joins me now. Sheriff, I mean, that video of you is from about, 10 years ago? But clear the air. Does Kamala have your support for what she's done at the border?
She absolutely does not have my support. Here in California, we want a leader who's going to support law enforcement. As you know, she helped support BLM rioters trying to bail them out of jail. She was a huge supporter of defunding the police.
If you're not aware of what we're currently watching, this video is a video of a sheriff from California, and he has previously had a track record of working with Harris. Let's get to it.
When you get to that little task force there collecting that methamphetamine, it was a lot of local law enforcement working hard to bring the drugs off the streets. In that particular situation, the soundbite, and she left. What we need to do is make sure that we have a leader who's going to support law enforcement. I couldn't, in good faith, standing there alongside my colleagues, remotely give the implication that we were supporting Kamala Harris. And to note, during that time, if you research just a little bit, when she was the Attorney General under Governor Brown, she removed over 50 different task force from Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement under her command. And so that's not a leader we need for law enforcement. We need someone who's going to stand behind law enforcement, just like Donald Trump does.
So
he has said a lot. He has said a mouthful. And were you guys aware of that? Were you guys aware of any of this track record of her in California and that she does not support the police? How can you? We'll talk about it at the end.
And featuring you in that ad tonight is what? Take it down?
Well, first off, the ad itself is deceptive. It's not giving the proper and truthful outlook as to us behind there supporting. If you take a look at the pictures, you can definitely see the disdain on our faces. Take a close look. We were truly disgusted at the fact she came in for a photo op and left. So that picture there is deceptive.
Well, I think what she's trying to do, obviously, is she's trying to soften the blow of this open border, and right before the DNC in Chicago next week, give this great sense that law enforcement is on her side. All the border sheriffs are on her side. She's the great warrior against fentanyl, as fentanyl is still pouring into California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Florida, Texas, because of this open border, her open border. But you guys support her?
We do not support her. And actually, I was on the phone with Mark Lamb today. He's a friend of mine in Arizona. You know who he is. He is equally as disgusted at the fact that Kamala comes across as a border security type of law enforcement candidate. She is not. Our borders are open. We have human trafficking, gun running, drug running, all across an open border from California all the way to Arizona and Texas. She does not have the support of law enforcement.
Left, Marxist. She wants open borders. She wants our country. I don't understand why anybody would want it, but she wants our country to be open to the world's criminals.
Hot topic, immigration. Hot topic. I remember so many people were upset about him talking about building the tallest wall, and I'm being sarcastic, but they were upset. But now we have Kamala, border czar. She has the border completely open. So we'll talk about it versus at the end, but I just wanted to put another pause in there.
What she's doing, she's the worst vice president / border czar. She was the border czar. All of a sudden she's saying she's not. I don't want to get you in trouble, but she's the border czar. All of a sudden she's saying I'm not the border czar. You know why she says that? Because there's never been a border in the whole world that's leaked like this border, with all those millions and millions of criminals coming through. Many of them are criminals, so all they had to do is put it up. They could have had it completed in 3 weeks, but they said, let's have open borders. What Biden and Kamala have done to the families here with me and so many others, thousands and thousands of others, not only killed, also really badly hurt to a point where they'll never lead a normal life again. Shameful, and it's evil. Kamala says she wants to talk about the future. No, these people want to go back to the safe past. We don't have a future with open borders and all of the other problems this country has. The choice is simple. Kamala's mass amnesty of criminals or President Trump's mass deportation.
We will build a great wall along the southern...
It's one of the pledges that launched Trump's campaign and helped win him the White House. So how much impact has Trump had on immigration?
And so Mexico has not paid for the wall, and he has not built much new wall, but the wall on the southern border is real, and he has taken funds from the Defense Department to pay for it. He has also changed the asylum system. He has made it much harder for people fleeing persecution to claim asylum at the southern border. I think last year, for the first time, Canada overtook the United States as the country that settles the most refugees.
Trump's administration slashed the number of refugee admissions from 108,000 by the end of 2016 to 24,000 by the end of 2019. Under Trump, the number of migrants in detention centres has increased. The tone and intention of his policies has been clear and unwavering.
Children and adults are seen huddled together in the building that's divided up into chain-link fencing that looks like a cage.
It was a statement that immigration was something that was not desirable, and that has been the main focus of his presidency.
Many of the policies that grabbed the headlines were enacted by executive orders signed by the president without needing to be passed through Congress.
Okay, this is border security, immigration enforcement and improvements. Very important. We've been talking about this right from the beginning.
Which means, in theory, they could be reversed by the same process.
That may be true as a technical matter, but the extent to which he has changed America's stance on immigration, the extent to which he has turned the Republican Party away from the long-standing bipartisan consensus that we are a nation of immigrants, and that's a source of strength and pride, can't be so easily undone. Also, the sheer number of changes he's made is going to be really hard for a Biden administration, if indeed that's what we have, to contend with, because it's going to be coming into office and having to deal with a depressed economy, with a pandemic, with probably calls for government reform. There's just a limited amount of political capital.
So Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax, a lot of it.
Trump announced America would withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. Though other countries have sought to move away from fossil fuels, Trump set about reigniting America's oil, natural gas, and coal industries.
Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of the Interior have really been firing on all cylinders in terms of removing regulations on coal plants, not only, but also methane pipelines and exploration of wilderness. The cumulative effect of that, there's some people have measured that this would increase carbon dioxide emissions by roughly 3% in a year over time, which is substantial. It's at a time when you want America to be going the opposite direction, especially because you want other countries to feel obliged to also follow in that direction.
In total, Trump has reversed 79 environmental rules. including the Clean Power Plan, which had set limits on carbon emissions from electricity plants, replacing it with a more lenient rule. Many of the rollbacks are facing legal challenges by states and environmental groups, but these might fail.
The thing that's tricky about this, if Trump were to be elected and litigation continues, then there's a chance that some of Trump's changes would become permanent. And perhaps more damaging than that, the Supreme Court could rule to limit the EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. So the Environmental Protection Agency, which serves under the president, would be limited under all future presidents, even a Democratic one, from having really bold environmental regulations.
You know, when I got in, we had over 100 federal judges that weren't appointed. It was like a big, beautiful present to all of us.
Trump has appointed 217 federal judges, including 161 to district courts, 53 to courts of appeal, and 3 to the Supreme Court.
It is my honor to nominate Amy Coney Barrett.
In all, Trump has appointed more than a quarter of the judiciary. He's moved faster than any president in their first term for 40 years. The appointment or elevation of so many conservative judges is already reshaping American law. Many will sit for life, so the impact, not least in limiting the scale and scope of government legislation, could be felt for decades to come.
Probably most pronounced are going to be at the Supreme Court. There's this sort of long-standing worry that Roe versus Wade, which is the Supreme Court case that gave women a constitutional right to an abortion, will be limited even further. Some people think it might even be repealed entirely. There's another challenge to the Affordable Care Act up before them on November 10th. There's also a lot of fear about things happening along any of these dimensions that could hamper a sort of subsequent Democratic administration, which is likely to try and use the machinery of the administrative state to sort of achieve its policy ambitions. And the idea is that a very sort of Trump-heavy Supreme Court and Trump-heavy courts generally are just going to limit that quite a lot.
Perhaps Trump's most enduring legacy will go far beyond policy.
When you report fake news, you are the enemy of the people.
4 years of lies and bullying have inflamed political discourse in America.
Partisanship and polarization have been increasing for many decades before Trump came onto the scene. You can say that Trump is sort of a symptom of that polarization, but that he's also accelerated it in some ways.
Obama was seen as hugely divisive. Trump is seen as divisive. The difference is Barack Obama made conscious efforts to reach out to people who disagreed with him. Donald Trump has not done that. And so even to the extent that every president is divisive, he has reveled in the divisiveness in a way that past presidents have not.
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
So if you look at sort of measures of how Republicans feel about Democrats and Democrats feel about Republicans, you look at whether people talk about the other party as evil or immoral, or all these sorts of kind of extreme measures, they all go up during the Trump administration.
A recent survey found that 1 in 5 Americans believed violence could be justified to some extent if the other party wins the impending election. But America isn't just fractured along political lines.
And you see that the Republican parties increasingly become a party of white identity. If you identify as having racially conservative views on African Americans, you're much more likely to become a Republican now than ever before. Trump has just accelerated the polarization along these identity lines. And even if he loses, it will still be the case.
If he wins, obviously, we have another 4 years to assess his legacy. If he loses, I think that he exposed and invigorated a part of American culture that some had ignored in the past. And I don't think that that's going away.
We have to go off the track records and what they have done while they were in office. The numbers are very high. The numbers were very low for individuals being able to come in. Now the numbers are very high, which is not a good thing for our children, for us if we run businesses and things like that. I did mention New York and the incidents that happened in New York, but there are other states out here that I'm sure you guys have heard about and incidents that's happening, and that is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for families. It's not a good thing for children. It's just not a good thing for our safety to allow individuals to come in unscreened. Background check is a thing for a reason.